It was a quiet evening in the small town of Maplewood. The kind of evening where the air feels still and the world seems to slow down just enough to let you catch your breath. I was sitting on my porch, wrapped in a light sweater, sipping a cup of tea. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was peaceful, until it wasn't. Down the block, I saw the flashing lights of a police cruiser. My stomach tightened. A black SUV had been pulled over, and two officers were approaching the driver. Even from a distance, I could tell something was off. The way they moved, quick, aggressive, their hands hovering near their belts, set off alarms in my mind. I stood up, my tea forgotten on the small table beside me, and took a few steps toward the edge of the porch. The driver stepped out of the car. He was a tall, broad-shouldered black man, dressed in a simple button-up shirt and slacks. He held his hands slightly raised, palms open, as if to show he meant no harm. My heart ached as I watched the officers begin to pat him down, their movements rough and hurried. The man didn't resist, but I could see the tension in his body, the way his jaw clenched, the way his shoulders stiffened. He was trying to stay calm, but I could tell he was angry. And he had every right to be. A small crowd had started to gather on the sidewalk, murmuring among themselves. I recognized some of the faces: Mrs. Jenkins from the bakery, Mr. Patel from the corner store, a few teenagers who had been riding their bikes earlier. We all watched in silence, our unease growing with every passing second. I couldn't stay on the porch any longer. I walked down the steps and joined the crowd, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. One of the officers glanced at me, his expression hard. "Stay back, ma'am," he said curtly. "This doesn't concern you." But it did concern me. It concerned all of us. The man they were detaining was one of us, a member of our community, and the way they were treating him felt wrong, so wrong. The man finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Officers, I think there's been a misunderstanding." The taller officer sneered. "We'll decide if there's a misunderstanding. License and registration now." The man reached slowly into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. He handed over his ID, his eyes never leaving the officers. There was something about the way he carried himself, something dignified, unshakable. It made the officer's aggression feel even more out of place. The shorter officer took the ID and glanced at it. His face went pale. He nudged his partner and handed him the card. The taller officer's eyes widened, and for a moment he just stood there, frozen. Chief Thompson," he stammered. The man nodded. "That's right. I'm Marcus Thompson, the new police chief of Maplewood." The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. My own breath caught in my throat. The officers looked like they'd been struck by lightning. They stumbled over their words, trying to explain themselves, but Chief Thompson raised a hand, silencing them. "I understand you were just doing your job," he said, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "But this right here is exactly why I took this position. We need to do better. We have to do better." The officers nodded, their faces flushed with shame. The crowd watched in silence, the weight of the moment settling over us all. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. This wasn't just about one man being wrongfully detained. It was about something bigger, something deeper. It was about hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. Chief Thompson turned to the crowd, his eyes scanning our faces. "This town is my home," he said, "and I'm here to make sure everyone in it feels safe, no matter who they are or what they look like." A cheer went up, but it was quiet, almost reverent. We all knew how much work there was to do, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like we had someone on our side, someone who understood. As the crowd began to disperse, I lingered for a moment, watching Chief Thompson speak quietly with the officers. His words seemed to be sinking in, their heads bowed in acknowledgement. I walked back to my porch, my heart still racing but filled with a strange, hopeful warmth. The sun had fully set now, and the streetlights flickered on, casting a soft glow over the neighborhood. I picked up my cup of tea, now cold, and took a sip. It tasted bitter, but somehow, it felt right. Change was coming. I could feel it. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, it would be for the better. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. I thought about Chief Thompson, his calm demeanor, his quiet strength. I thought about the officers, Their initial arrogance, their eventual shame. And I thought about the crowd, the way we had all come together, united by a shared sense of injustice and hope. I thought about my own role in all of it. I hadn't done much, just asked a question, stood there, watched. But maybe that was enough. Maybe just bearing witness, just being present, was a kind of action in itself. Maybe change started with small moments like these. Moments where people came together and said, "This isn't right, we can do better." As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were heading in the right direction. And that was enough. For now. Hey everyone, if this story moved you, if it made you think, or if it reminded you why we need to keep having these conversations, please take a moment to like this video. It really helps spread awareness. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something like this? Let's talk about it. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're here to share real, powerful stories that need to be heard. Lastly, share this with your friends and family. The more people who see this, the more we can bring awareness and change. Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. Let's keep pushing forward, together.